All right, in that last recording, just a quick review, we learned how to create our own methods, either private or public. If it returns a value, you put the type here. If it doesn't, you put void. The name of the method, you get to pick it. And then any information you need to send it for it to do its job. In that last method, we needed to send it an array so that it knew which array we want converted into a big long string. Where do you put these? It doesn't matter really too much as long as it's inside the class. So I had it, we wrote these down here in the region, but here's my end class way down here. So as long as it's inside the class, if you create your own here, you can put them wherever you want as long as it's inside the class. And I like to alphabetize them so I can find them. And now to finish up our application, the next thing we need to do is make our program a little smarter. At the end of the last recording, I showed you how if we create a bunch of errors on our form and hit save, it goes off and does it. Well, that doesn't make sense. This is all about validating. If there's errors on the form, the GUI should be smart enough to say, I'm not even going to insult the business class by asking because I know there's errors. So the first thing I want to do is create a method called NoErrors. It's basically a question. If there are no errors, then I'm going to go on my way. But this is a Boolean method. It sends back true or false. There's either errors or there aren't. And the question I'm asking here is, are there no errors? It's private because we're talking about the form. The form, we're telling the form, don't even do a save if you still have errors on your form. So first things first, here's button save. I do not want to try to do any of this stuff if there are still errors. So I'm going to say if no errors. Now, no errors doesn't exist, so it's going to give me just a smidge of grief here. If there are no errors, then go ahead and do this. Else, display a message box. Now, in this case, I am interrupting my user because they said save, and I'm going, no, I'm not doing it. I'm interrupting them. Remember, all those other errors are just as I'm typing. They're done typing. They just hit save. Okay, so at this point, I'm going to say, nope, not doing it because you still have errors on the form. Let's see, message is first, right? Yep. You must correct the designated errors before saving. And then I get a title. Then I get an icon and buttons, so the button is just going to be an OK. And the icon is an error icon. It's a bit long. We'll break it here, and that's my message box. So now I need to write no errors. Where? Well, that's a little bit of strategy. And collapse everything so I can see no errors is really part of my validation, right? So I'm going to put it down here with my data transfer / validation events. No errors would come before my numpys. It's a private Boolean. And nothing gets sent in. Why not? Because of this little routine, now it's Nathan's turn. Nathan's job is going to be to look over the form. What form? Well, he's only got one form, his form. So I don't need to tell him which form. He's just going to go through the form and see if there's any error markers on that form. So I don't have to send him anything, but he's going to send me a thumbs up, thumbs down, yes, no. There's no errors. He's going to return something. For right now, I'm just going to put a false in here, just to shut everything up. There. This method okay. Now, how are we going to do that? Well, this is not as simple as it sounds, but before I even do this, it occurred to me I wanted to do one thing ahead of time. There's a clear button on this form, isn't there? That wipes all these things out. Kind of a cancel. Here it's cancel. And no, we haven't written it yet, so never mind. Somebody stumbled upon errorprovider.clear. If you do an errorprovider.clear, it clears all the error markers. So when you're clearing your form, you're wiping out all the data, but you're not leaving those fields, so the error markers never go away. That erases, I'm just putting it in the recording, that erases all of the error markers on the form. Sets them all to the empty string, every single one. So that's very handy. I will put that in my clear button. In the unit 3, we're going to put it in the cancel button, which says whatever my data was when I started editing, put it back. But when I put it back, that means all the errors should be gone because it came out of the database, so it should be good data. So I should wipe out my error markers. That's a quick way of doing it. We'll probably have to do that in the next unit. But if you, I think in your gas mileage program, you have a clear button, right? It should still be there because that program is not quite database ready yet. In your clear button, in addition to clearing all the fields and radio buttons and all that other good stuff, you should also be clearing off the error markers. Otherwise, they just sit there. You clear everything, it's fresh and new, and it's got errors on it already. Not what you want. Okay, so what do we do here? Well, this is complicated enough that I'm going to cheat. Here's the code. I'm going to create a string that's going to contain all of the text in the error markers. Remember when we set an error marker, we set a message, right? EX message, or the empty string. I'm going to go through every single error marker on the form because they may be visible or they may be hidden, or actually go through every object on the form and check its error marker. See if its marker has any text in it. If it has text in it, it's also visible, right? That's how those error markers work. If they have no text, they're invisible. So that's how I'm going to walk through to find out if any error markers are on. I'm just going to go through and grab all the text from the error markers and concatenate them together. When I'm done, if the form is clean, I'll have an empty string. But if there's an error marker anywhere on the form, this variable string errors will have something in it. So here's another for each loop. We saw this last semester, right, for walking through all the controls on a form. For every control on the form, get its error marker. Well, wait a minute. Why am I going through all of them? Because this goes through all the labels and all the buttons and all the radio buttons and all the... Yeah, but filtering all those out is more pain. This is just going to go through everything. Labels can have error markers, but they'll never have any text in the error markers because we're not changing any of those. Buttons can have error markers, but they're not going to have any text on them. So this just says go through everything on your form and get the error text if there is any. Get the error. This is also new. Here's my error provider. We've been doing set error, right? Here's get error. What's its error text? Get it, concatenate it. When you're done, return. We want to return a Boolean. So we want to send back true or false. Is it empty? If it's still empty, we say no errors is true. If it's not empty, we say no errors is false. So maybe I can save some time. Let's see how well this works. Probably not very good, especially since I'm switching from the Mac world to the Windows world. Oh, that was cool. So that kind of explains what the logic is here. Start at nothing, and then for each object, go through it and see if there's anything visible. Still haven't changed my button. Oh, come on. I didn't break anything. Said, yes, you did. What did I break? Button cancel, click on line. Oh, I created button cancel and then deleted it. Oh, I was going to the form. Oh well. I still have large X. And now when I hit save, what's going to happen? Well, I put my if statement in. It says, call Nathan, have him check out the form. You find any error? Yep, I found an error marker. That's not good. No errors is false because there is an error. And we get our message box saying you got to fix that. And notice it doesn't calculate. It skips the calculation. It never calls the business class to say, what's my order total? Fix it. Make a different error. Like G sticks is 5,500 again. As soon as I left, the error marker turned on. Initially, I didn't even see it. Okay, but as soon as I hit the save button, I left, it said, oh, error marker, and it immediately sees it. Notice it doesn't tell me what's wrong. I kind of leave that to the user, but I don't think that's a problem. If you can't see the error markers on the form, that's a different problem. We'll fix the form. What's it going to do now? Is it going to save? Yes. Wait a minute. These are required. Never touched them. No error markers. Off it goes, and it saves and probably tells me the right price, but I've just saved a record with no customer name in it. And when this goes to the database in Unit 3, that's not good. So even though the form is smart enough to know that there's nothing left on the form that's wrong, there could still be errors. And we still have to teach the business class to look around and see what's what. Now, there's two ways to solve that problem. One is to have the business class do it, and that's the way I'm going to solve it. What one of my students came up with was a plan is he went through every object on the form, date picker, this one, this one, this one, and he touched them in code. He said, set focus, set focus. When you set focus from one to the other, that's a lost focus that causes the validating event. So what that student did is he started at the top, worked all the way down the form, and set focus to everybody, and then went and checked to see if there were any error markers. Because if I had touched this and left, then it would have an error marker. So he in code touched them and left just to make sure that every field's validation event occurred.
Did you use a for each for that?
Yeah, it's a little tougher because now you want to walk through only the real things like text boxes and numeric up downs and combo boxes and date pickers, and he did it. And actually, I think what he might have done is walked through every object on the form again. What happens when you go to a label and set focus to it? Nothing. Goes to the next place. What happens when you focus on buttons? Not much. So I think he wrote the same code, but instead of saying check the error marker, he simply said set focus to it and then left. And that solved the problem. It did, but a little time consuming, but not terrible, because he went through every object and just made sure it's been touched and left so that all the validation has occurred. That doesn't, however, solve some of our other problems. So that's one way to do it. I'm going to do it a different way. I'm going to the business class. And in the business class, before we do any of this order total stuff, I want to ask basically the same question. Are there any fields in this object that are still bad? And for a while when I wrote this, I wrote code that says go through every one of the objects and validate it. And it occurred to me, I don't have to go through the objects that are optional. There is no way that any bad data gets in. We might be initializing to bad data, but if it's optional, it's initialized to null, that's perfectly fine. I realized at the time the only thing I need to check are the required members. What's required? Order date, yeah, but it's a date time that there's no null there. Customer first name, yeah, that's required. Last name, yep, that's required. Size, yep, that's required. What did we initialize those to? Here's my constructor. First name, last name are the empty string. Size is the empty string. Number of pies is 1. There's no way that that 1 is going to be changed to an invalid value. Can't happen. The property will prevent it. Can't happen. Soda is optional. Cheese sticks are optional. Coupon is optional. Those are all optional. The only thing we have to check in the business class are the required fields to see if they're still missing, empty, whatever it is. If they're still missing, then we have an error. So how am I going to do that? I'm going to write another method. Custom method. Just like I did before. And it's very similar to NoErrors. Oh, let's get this out of the way for now. I write a method called InvalidData. What InvalidData is going to send me is a list of the fields that are still missing. It's going to send me a list of the fields that are still missing. I'll be able to look and see if the string is empty. When I say list, I mean a string. Okay. I'll be able to look to see if the list is still empty. If it is, everything's cool. If the string is not empty, then something's missing that's required, and I won't do any calculations. Doesn't make sense to calculate if you're missing data. It could be something that's important to the calculation. Here it's just first name, last name, and size. Size is important to my calculation. Calculating the cost of a pizza when I don't know how big it is doesn't make any sense. So I call it InvalidData. I've had students just about every year saying it's a stupid name, and they make up their own. That's fine. The only class that needs it is my class. It's only used inside, internally. The GUI doesn't call it. It could. That's not the way I'm doing this. I'm letting the business class do its own internal validation. It's going to return a string. Invalid, what did I say? Data? Ugh, I don't even like it anymore. InvalidFields, or let's put it this way. Oh, no, I'm sorry. Invalid fields doesn't make, missing fields doesn't make sense because this method is going to be enhanced before we're done to also check for consistency. So I'm going back to InvalidData. That's why I called it that. That might include missing. This method returns a string. And I don't have to send it anything because this method is simply going to look through everything in the current object, in the current class, and make sure it's cool. I'm going to say if first name, customer first name, not customer first name, what's the method name? First name. It's probably not happy because the return statement's missing and it doesn't want to do anything for me. Temporarily going to put that return statement in. If, not what? Private string, invalid data. It's just not happy with my if statement. If the customer first name is still equal to the empty string. Then I'm going to concatenate customer first name. Let's just do this. Customer first name. And I know I want these stacked. There's a couple of ways I could solve this problem, but I'm just going to do this. What am I doing with that? Add it to, geez. That's all I get, Boker. Okay. So let's call it bad fields. String bad fields equals the empty string. And this gets concatenated to bad fields. Okay, so if the first name is bad, designate it. At the end, I'm going to return the bad field list. If the last name, these are distinct if statements, they're sequential ifs. If the last name is the empty string, bad fields plus equals customer last name. Just making a list of fields that I have discovered are still bad. And the only other one that's still required that isn't initialized to a valid value in the first place is size. If the size is the empty string. So you have to figure out in your programs what's required and what's not. Now, whenever I try to calculate inside of my class, later on when we try to save data, before I do anything, I don't even declare variables before I do this. If InvalidFields double equals the empty string. When you call a method, you must put the parentheses in, even if you're not sending anything. Remember when I called Kyle, I said make string from array, I put parentheses and then what I wanted him to process. And it's not called InvalidFields. Should be. Let's do that. Maybe that's better. I don't know. But now it's happening down here. If the invalid field list is empty, this says call. I don't know whose turn it is to call Tyler. Call Tyler, and Tyler goes through the class now because he lives in the class. Remember that Nathan was on the form. Tyler's in the class. He goes through those 1, 2, 3 required fields and sees if they're still missing. If there are, he makes a list of the ones that are missing and sends it to me. If that list is empty, then go ahead and process. Else, no, actually, is this where I want to do this? Yeah. Oh boy, I'm stuck here. Hang on a second. Else do what? Else throw an exception. I'm in the business class. Tyler's looked through and he said, wait, we got errors. I could put a message box here. Oh no, business class. Don't do message boxes in business class. I need to throw an exception back to the GUI saying, no, we refuse to do your calculation of orders because you're missing required fields. So I'm going to throw, just like I did before, a new exception with this message. Following fields need correcting. Backslash and quotes. Oh no. I want that list of fields that Tyler gave me. It's not available. Oh. Because I never saved it. I asked him for it. I used it immediately to see if it's blank, but I never saved it. So I think this is a better idea. Because I don't want to call him again and say check again, because he just did. He'd gladly do it because Tyler gets so well paid that he'll do it over and over and over again. He doesn't care. But why would I want to call him to give me an answer that I already know the answer to? Sort of. So in this case, what I'm doing is calling Tyler and say, hey, give me the list of invalid fields, and I'm going to save it in a variable. And then I use the variable. Are the bad fields still empty? If not, send this message back to the GUI concatenating that list of bad fields. So I come in here, somebody says, give me the order tool. We're going to hang on a second. Tyler, are there any errors left? Tyler does his job. He walks through and says, yep, there's some errors left. Okay, and then we send, and here's the fields. So we send those back. If he says, no, there are no errors, then this empty string here, then we go ahead and process. Now we have a different problem. When I hit button save, I have an if no errors on the form, then process, but I have this calculation. What happens if it crashes? My program crashes. Let's watch that work. Immediately hit save. There's no error markers on the form. So Nathan's happy. But then Tyler gets involved. He says, wait a minute, there's still errors. And grind. Ultimately, my program crashes. And that's not good. And it even tells me what's wrong. The following fields still need correcting, and get out of the way, but there's customer first name and so on, last name, and size. So that worked, but the GUI didn't catch the error. Whenever you throw an exception, you have to, on the other side, have something to catch it. In one language, I don't know, I thought it was this one, but in one language, maybe it's Swift, if you throw an exception and there's nobody on the other side to catch it, you get an error, syntax error. Because that language knows that whenever you call order total, it throws an exception. And so on this side, you have to catch it. So I now have to display the total, but I have to put a try catch around that. So I'm going to display whatever message I'm getting from Tyler with a title and buttons. Notice it's not very specific about what's wrong. That's extra credit. If you can figure out a way to find where these go and mark them and do the right stuff. But it's warned me. Still not happy. Still not happy. Notice if I wipe one of these out, get an error marker. If I now try to save, then Nathan gets involved. Goes, oh, where are you going? We got an error marker. Go fix that. So if I touch them, it's not a problem. But with all that code we've been writing so far is required fields that have never been touched, like size. And there's my total. So now we've got validation that intercepts pretty much everything. But there's one more thing. And the good news is it's more class validation. It's more Tyler validation here. There's one other thing that could be bad that is very hard, not impossible, but very hard for the GUI to do. Again, it's a rule, so the GUI really can't do it. And we can't check this ahead of time. These are called consistency checks. The most common one we'll see in Unit 3. I'm not adding this to the database because it's already there. How do we know if it's already there? What do we look at? RDD, folks. What was that last painful thing we were just doing? Logical fields. We look at the logical fields. Does this combination of fields already exist in the database? If it does, we throw an exception back saying, no, I'm not saving this. It's already in the database. It's a duplicate record. That's one of the most common. But we're not in the database yet. That's Unit 3. So here I have to make something up. There are other kinds of consistency checks. A consistency check is when you are validating 2 or more fields in combination. The coupon is okay. The cheese sticks are okay. But we have a business rule that says you can't use a coupon unless you order cheese sticks because all of our coupons are for cheese sticks. So you have to order cheese sticks before you can use a coupon. That's one of our business rules. These always come back to haunt me in the next unit because a lot of my database records don't have that rule in there. So I probably will comment it out. But this consistency check can't be done until all the other data is correct. And so at this point, everything is cool, and I can say if my bad fields list is still okay, then do some consistency checks. Like what? Like if cheese sticks is null, how would I do that? I could probably say cheese sticks is null. If cheese sticks double equals null, and coupon.value is it get value? What was that magic one? There we go. Is greater than 0. I can't ask if null is greater than 0, I don't think. If I ask for the value and there isn't one, I think I get an error. But what this says is the cheese sticks is null. I didn't order any cheese sticks. And the coupon value is greater than 0. That's an error. I just had a thought. Maybe instead of bad fields, we do something like this. Customer first name is required. Customer last name is required. Size is required. Then down here I can say must or cheese sticks, 2 words, required with coupon. There. That's one thing I could check. Another one that's in my notes that says if the order total, this is interesting. Notice everything's cool, right? There's no bad fields. If the order total, I can call for that inside here, is less than the coupon value, and add that error. But notice for consistency checks, the first key is you do all the required fields. As long as everything is here. At this point, everything is good. Doing a consistency check before you've validated everything else doesn't usually make a lot of sense. If everything's cool, then we do the consistency checks, and this is where I could put that comment in here. Check for duplicate records. Later. It would go here. Let's see how that works. Put in all the required stuff. Do a personal pizza, 1 pie, nothing else, no cheese sticks, and a $1 coupon. Now at this point, the first error I get says you got to have cheese sticks in order to have a coupon. So let's see how that goes. Uh-oh. Crash. Why are you crashing? Getting a crash and get customer first name? Didn't I type in first names? Now I'm crashing in a different location. I'm calling order total. Why would that be a problem? I wonder if I have an endless loop. Oh, I do. I have an endless loop because order total calls invalid fields, which calls order total, which calls invalid fields, which call order. Uh-oh. So there's two ways to write endless loops. One's with a loop that never ends, and another is to have methods that call each other circularly. That's what I've got here. So this is the one that's causing me trouble. Following fields need correcting. Cheese sticks required with coupon. Cool, so it sensed that. So now if I put in my 5 cheese sticks, then it goes, oh, okay, there's your total. Now, as it turns out, this is tough to test because the coupon max, I think, wasn't it $5? And if I have to order cheese sticks and I have to order at least 5 cheese sticks at 75 cents a piece to use the coupon, I don't think there's a way I can't. This is $6.25 with the minimum number of cheese sticks, or was it 4? Nope, 5. So that order total one isn't really a factor because of my first rule. Coupon value is 5. That's acceptable. On a $6.25 order, it should be okay. How come it didn't update right away? I don't recalculate until you hit save. Some people last semester didn't like that. And so as soon as they found an error in the form, not only did they display the message box, but they also wiped out the total. So it doesn't display a total from before. But this error message is an interesting one. I added it to my notes a little while ago, and I'm trying to think of where could I'd have to put that somewhere else, don't I? I can't do it here. Since the order total is necessary, here's my thought. Anybody else want to make a guess where you want to put it? Oh, come on.
Does it have to go in the actual method?
Good. If I know that I need the total, I'm going to take this one out, by the way, now that I've verified that it seems to work. If I know that I need the total, then the time to check is down here before I return. Now I have the total, actually right here. I have the total. If the total is less than 0. How can it be less than 0? I got a coupon that's bigger than my order. If the total is less than 0, then throw a new exception. If I throw the exception, return never happens. Because this immediately says explode, send it back to the GUI, and this return statement never happens. Back in the GUI said, try to calculate my total. If we ever get an exception, say we can't save, here's why. And so this time, because I took the cheese sticks out, I should be able to say 1 pi personal, which I think is 350. No coupon, no nothing, save. Oh. What? Oh. Stupid. Go. Caught it. Thanks for the bright idea. I needed the total to be calculated, so I needed to actually put this validation, which is bizarre, inside it. First time I've seen something like that. I needed to put it inside my calculation and say, if there's a problem, then let the business class know with this total. But I was at least able to calculate the total before I started. Couldn't we just say if the total is less than 0, make it 0? Yes. Okay. Force it. Say, fine, you got a $5 coupon, it's only $3.50, we're even, here's your pizza. We can do that. But this gives them a little more information, and we could just say, and at this point, they won't let us stop. We'd have to go back and change the coupon value to $3.50 before it would let us go. So if I put that back in there one more time, personal pizza, $5 coupon, it goes no. But if I make it $3.50, and notice it formats when I leave, then it's happy, price is 0. Everybody walks away with pizza and a little bit of money and good. So, as a review, this is the 5th hour of this recording, so we've covered a lot. Started with key press events to prevent the user from typing stuff into a GUI field that we know is numeric. Particularly if we're not using the numeric field. Okay, here we used a numeric up-down. I don't want to use it for cheese sticks because cheese sticks can be quite large. I could. I don't want to use it for coupon because every time I hit the up arrow with coupons, it goes up a penny. That's a pain. You can still type. In the web programming class next fall, if it's numeric, it gets a numeric up-down field, basically. Because in web programming, that's what gets you the magic keyboard that comes up when you're in this numeric. Don't you hate it when you get a numeric field and it comes up with the alphabetic keyboard? How does the web page not know that's a numeric field? Why wouldn't it know? It can, and it should know that that's a numeric field, so when you put your cursor in there, it automatically pops up with the number keypad. In order to do that, we have to designate it as a numeric field. So if you want to make all your numeric fields numeric up-downs, I can live with that. It's going to make you do it next year anyways. But this is not a web app. It's a desktop app. It's always going to have a keyboard attached. So we did key value or key press events. We also talked in RDD about how hard it is to validate that a first name has the right set of characters in it. Don't let them put numbers in. Don't let them put semicolons in. No, that's really hard to do. I don't usually mess with it. All I worry about is the length. Is it too long? Is it too short? It can't be too. I guess it could be too short. could say it has to be at least one letter long. Well, that's what we did, right? So it's not optional. So those are hard to validate. Then we added field level validation. So whenever I leave a field, it validates it. That's field level validation. Immediately lets the user know something's wrong. I still like this. We still encode it in JavaScript because HTML5 won't do it. So we encode it in JavaScript so that we get little error markers whenever you leave a field that's not valid. But we're not in JavaScript, but same thing happens here. If I pick one of these, that's still there. I got to get rid of it. It's good. And then finally, the last step was form and class level validation. Form level validation going, no, I'm not saving because there's error markers on the form. Class level validation, the stuff we can't do, the GUI can't do. The GUI can't go through the form and say, are all the required fields filled in? Because it doesn't know what the required fields are. So the business class has to do that before it tries to save, before it tries to calculate, in your case. Before it tries to calculate, we need to make sure everything's good one last time. All the required fields are there. My consistency checks check out. They're okay. If all of that's true, then okay, I guess I'll calculate your total for you. Takes those 3 levels of validation, I feel, to do good, thorough validation of inputs. Questions? All right, then before you leave, it's time to make another decision. Holy cow, I was supposed to split this up. Well, I forgot to do it. Well, you guys are all busy with your assignment tracker anyways, so. Okay. Here's part 2A, which is basically build a business class. I'm real tempted to combine these two into one program. Doesn't make sense. I'm going to combine them. There's one program. What you're doing in this program is taking the starter from the gas mileage last semester, where you put in the miles and the MPG, and the cost per gallon, and the date, and the description, and the customer's name, and all that stuff, and validating it. Not saving it to the database, but we're validating it. So every field has put key pressed events in the numeric fields. Names are required. Dates can't be in the future. A lot of the stuff that we've already done. And before you calculate, make sure that at least the highway miles or the city miles are there, because we can't skip them both, but we could do all city mile driving. We could do all highway driving. But one or the other has to be there, but not both. That's a consistency check, hint, hint. Because it's 2 fields, city miles and highway miles. If you try to check them on the GUI, or if you try to check them, this is so common. You leave the city miles and somebody says, do you have highway miles? No. But I haven't even had a chance. I haven't been there yet, and you're already yelling at them because the highway miles are missing. That's one of the problems. The other problem is those two can get into a circular loop like I just had, where the city miles is checking the highway miles, which checks the city miles, which checks the highway miles, which checks the city miles. And it never ends, and it crashes. So it's a consistency check that you have to delay until the very end, like we just did. Or one or the other there, or both. That's the program. So I'm going to combine them, which means the points come together, which means it'll probably be about a 40-point program. But there is no business class in that gas mileage program. There's no validation events in that gas mileage program. You're basically doing everything we did in this unit. That's today. Thursday will be 3 hours of lab for you to work on that. I just buried you with an RDD assignment there, right? Not that I care, because that's my evil twin instructor who teaches that class. I don't care what he does. We got mission to accomplish in this class. So make me an offer, folks. Want to ruin your weekend and make it Tuesday or make it Friday or
The 13th looks like a good month.
the 13th? That's 2.5 weeks from now. I guess you can always turn in early, right? If I were, and the downside to that is you get Thursday, where are we? You get Thursday for lab, but come Tuesday, time for database. More lecture. We just don't, we have a lot to cover. We just don't have the time to give you an entire week of. You'll get more lab on Thursday. Oh. All right, your choice. Let me offer you this. I will give you lab Thursday and Tuesday, an entire week, technically, of lab if you'll make it due the 6th. If you make it due the 6th. If you would rather have it on the 13th, that means I start lecturing on Tuesday. And you get labs on Thursday and Thursday to work on it. Vote. Hands. 6th. Done. Okay, that means lab for the next 5 hours. Make good use of that lab, folks. Trust me. I warned you, these first 2 programs were the worst. They're not necessarily the longest, but they're the hardest. So get cranking and kind of do them as we did in pieces. Validate a field, business class, validate a field, add the business class. Good luck to you.